today. You're welcome to put things. So I have my own idea, right? I was inspired to offer this class because I feel like our field is so prone to burnout. And I'm starting to see a pattern with therapists. So, and a lot of therapists, maybe we're not aware of it. So I was like, well, what would it be like for me to do a class and just name this pattern so we can all bring into our awareness as therapists collectively? And then when we address this pattern and we do our own work around it, I do believe we become better therapists, we become more alive in our practice. And we're no longer wondering, I don't know if you guys felt this, but sometimes when I'm like not doing my work, when I'm not feeling good, when I'm not taking care of myself, I'm starting to doubt, like, am I bringing value? And I think it's a valid question because maybe I'm not. When I'm not embodying what I teach my clients, then there's this imposter syndrome that comes in. And by the way, I'm Iryna. I am a therapist. I am originally from Belarus, which is Eastern Europe. I've been to the US for 22 years. And my, a little bit maybe in different, like, I see our work is also energetic. So I might talk about energy today. And the way I talk about energy, it's not like woo-woo esoteric, like some kind of thing out there. It's just our own, like, we all have physical energy, we all have emotional energy, we have mental. So it's a very real, like grounded thing that's there all the time happening. We just maybe not like naming it. You know what I mean? Like but it's very practical. So the way, and the reason I also wanted to do this class is I had a couple of clients who were therapists and we were doing this work and they were saying things like to them it was normal, and I was like, oh my god, like a therapist working in this way. I want to talk to like more therapists. And because this client was saying like, well, after a full day of clients, I'm exhausted, I'm depleted. I'm like, wow, that's like, is it, is it the norm? Is it like what we feel because we're so empathetic and caring? And I don't personally don't think it should be this way. So anyway, let's feel into, so the energy of this class, when I was feeling into the energy, is the energy of care. And what I believe about therapists and true about therapists that I've met, we all very we're all very caring people. Just put this. So we care. We sincerely care about the world. We sincerely care about our clients. And we compassionate and caring people. That's who we are. That's why we became therapists and caregivers. And what I see a lot, and I think it's what leads to burnout. And you guys can, I mean, I'm happy. This is so awkward for me to like just speak, by the way. I would rather have a conversation. But that's sort of the structure, but you're welcome to, talk to me about this. If it resonates. What I really think that the problem with burnout is when care becomes caretaking. And do you guys know the difference between, like, I don't know, put like yes or no in the chat, like, do you know what's the difference between care and caretaking, and how caretaking drains you and care nourishes you? So, yeah. So my whole sort of premise here is that we're loving and compassionate people, and that's our essence as therapists. But there's a mask, or there's a close, like, protection mechanism that's called caretaking that we sometimes fall into because of our wounds. And we confuse the two, and we start doing caretaking instead of caring, and that's where we burn out. And that's and as you know, we can go into why, and you probably know as therapists that when you were born, when if you like me and you were born and your parents, didn't recognize your needs right away and you were fed on a schedule and things like that, right? Like if somebody was telling to me today that their diaper was changed on schedule, and so the parents kind of trying to mold this person into pooping according to their schedule instead of really, instead of responding to this baby's needs and responding to when the diaper is dirty. So in my culture, I'm from Belarusian, we were fed on schedule. And I don't know, I think Americans like changing it now, but you probably, there's this way of parenting back in the day where you were fed by the clock, like every 3 hours. And so you would never responded to your kid in caring. And when our needs are not met, we start caretake. So we start meeting. We start caretaking others so we can get our needs met. And how does it show up? Let me just see if it resonates with your experience. But for me, it's this guilt I feel when I want to take time for myself. So there's guilt about charging too. So money is like a life force energy. Money is how we take nourishment. And so I feel this like tightness around charging. And money is where we get, to care about ourselves, right? Because we get compensated, that's an exchange for our care. But I don't know how, I haven't met a therapist yet who's comfortable around charging. And I think that's also related to burnout when we're not charging enough, we're not replenishing ourselves, and there's energetically not a balance. And by the way, I tried working to better health in the beginning of this year. And that's just, the companies like this just drive me crazy. But the companies that pay therapists $45 an hour, licensed therapists, just like, and it's a problem in our field, the problem with us taking care of ourselves and charging what we're worth because we feel so guilty about it. And I hear from therapists like, I want to take a sick day, but I can't afford to, and I can't afford to take care of myself. And that's also, systematic issue in our field because we don't get health insurance, we're not cared for. And we have to care for ourselves in that way. Yeah. Yeah, we're taking things more codependent. You can't be yourself, just exactly. Caretaking, let me share. So doing a share slide. Oh. I didn't really. Wanted to share a slide on caretaking. So I'm just gonna read off. It's just a little thing I put about the difference between caring and caretaking. So caretaking is rooted in fear or the need to feel needed. It crosses emotional boundaries. It attaches to outcomes, leads to resentment and burnout, and comes from survival role or saving role, and it's self-abandonment. So this is also my main thing. I mean, if anything, I want to bring awareness for us as therapists as how self-abandoning we usually are. That's basically the gist of it, right? Like if you can walk away with one kind of like insight today, I would I would look into that, like how am I abandoning myself that leads to burnout. And but before we can see that, let's do like a short meditation where we get to experience. So I really wanted this class to be like a felt sense experience, not just intellectual or something. I think we as therapists is also like so much is like intellectual insights. But what if we have an energetic experience right now? How what's possible for us if we be deeply caring and nourishing to oneself first. And yesterday, I really felt this like energy of care and love in my heart that I would share with you and offer that as a sort of experience for today. So if you take a few deep breaths right now, really feel your body being healed. Really connect to your want. Like even you being here, you want something. You want something from yourself, and maybe there's a level of suffering that's happening in your life right now, and you're wanting a solution. You're wanting, and I don't know about you, I feel my wants and desires like in my chest right there. There's like this pull of a sensation, and it does feel like aliveness. And if you feel into your heart, or if you feel it in a different place, that's okay too. But if you feel it in your heart, in your body, just get a sense like what is it that you really want for yourself right now or in your life. How is it that you want to feel in your work with your clients? How do you want to show up in your sessions? And imagine that. What if you can have what you want? Really, we open some possibilities today for you to actually have what you want. And I'm just gonna share with you. You're welcome to stay with what you want, but I want to feel very present and alive in my sessions, and I want to trust the process. I want to trust the client's power and ability. I want to trust their goodness. And throughout the session, I just want to stay with myself, with my body, and see what it feels like. So imagine you're with a client right now. That you fully in yourself, with yourself embodying your body. And when you connect with clients, you still stay with yourself. You don't need to leave yourself. You don't need to worry about them. You fully trust that what you give is enough because your presence is enough, because you're so full with yourself and your presence right now. That's even, beyond you because you connected to something bigger. And you trust that that's enough. And there's only joy and presence. And if there's something comes up, fears or worries about the client, I know sometimes I'm like, worry about the client receiving what they need, but you can love that part of you too and come back to trusting. And notice what it feels in your body when you do that, when you sit in sessions from this place of deep nourishment for yourself first. And then you extend it to your client. And just feel what it's like to be deeply caring to yourself first, to just energetically nourish yourself first. And everything in your life unfolds from this deep nourishment, deep love for yourself, deep care. Delighting who you are as a being. Really seeing your goodness in your heart. Because if you do this work, you care. You care a lot. And maybe at some point you stopped caring or you wanted to close the scare because it hurts so much. But see what it's like not to resist your goodness, your light, your love, and really open. And let your love pour out of you, let your care really be there. But include yourself and sort of like include yourself first. See if this shifts into something you want for your life. Maybe you want to do more creative process. Maybe you want to take a trip, create something in your life. See what it's like to be in your wants right now. Really owning your wants, allowing yourself to want. Is really what I want to give today in this, we call it class, but it's more like an energetic tune-up. It's bringing this energy of care and allowing your wants, allowing you to own your wants and make it about yourself and see that that's not selfishness. That's actually love and care. And this state, and I'm curious if you guys just want to share a little bit from this place, how it feels. Well, what would this place say about burnout? I know, and you guys welcome to share, and I'll share a little bit about my own personal stories that I always feel like I burn out when I leave this place and forget this place. And I'm just out there, right? When I'm in a session with a client, but I leave my body and I'm just so in them, like trying to help, like caretake, like then when I feel depleted after the session. When I leave my body and I don't have awareness of my own boundaries and what I need, because I'm so immersed in what they need, that's when I lose my energy in the session. When I don't take breaks and schedule back to back 5-6 people. And then by client number 3, I completely lost sense of my own body, what I need. That's when at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, like really? And when there's guilt about, and curious to hear from Amanda. Since you shared in the beginning, this what it feels like for you versus, you know, that state that you usually in. Is there a difference? So
Yeah,
oh,
sorry, my
yeah,
audio
yeah,
was, yeah.
yeah.
No, so even though, like you said, I can feel the difference and the need to whatever, do something about it, there's a strong guilt. I think the
Okay,
guilt is a big
great,
thing. You know, the
great.
guilt is I don't know where it comes from because I think
Would
there's, yeah, and
great.
that's a big, huge part, I think, of not being, I, I thought it was, I don't know if I can say for all therapists, it's definitely true for me. It was nice for me
Yes,
to hear that from you.
yes,
This whole,
absolutely. I do believe. Thank you so much. I'm going to talk about the guilt next. I just want to check if that's going to resonate, and you confirm that it's resonating for you. So I trust it's going to resonate with the group and those who will listen to this. So yes, guilt is a block that because what I mentioned about like charging, right? So when I know that, okay, I need to raise my rates and to take care of myself by this much, I immediately feel guilt, like, oh my God, like, what about this? You know, and I think about how's it going to be for others, and I abandon my own needs in that way, right? So guilt is a huge, huge block. And that's why part of my process, when I work with somebody on this, is always includes working with anger. And this doesn't come from me, it comes from Lowen. There's a psychotherapist, psychoanalyst, who I read his book, and I started working. I implementing it with my own and with my clients, and I think it's true. So he says that anger. So guilt is a suppressed anger. So if guilt and shame is is basically our anger turned inward. So what I discovered, and it's true, and you don't have to believe me, and you kind of have, you know, you can explore it in your own process. But basically, what happens when we have needs, and they are not responded to, like that example with the diaper or with the breastfeeding by, you know, by the clock, or just the parent is not being attuned to a child, like many of us had. I certainly had this childhood, and then I didn't receive what I needed or wanted. And so I got the message that, well, first, I'm not allowed to have what I want and need. And second, that when I do, um, I'm shamed for it. Like there's some kind of response from the caregiver, like, you know, not because they're bad or anything, but just misattunement. And there's first response that a child feels is actually anger. Like when I don't get what I need as a child, there's anger. There's natural, like, no, I want this. I want this. Like, and then, and it's if you watch the experiment with the attachment style, you'll see it. Like if a parent, there's a video, my husband told me about this. He was watching that when the parent is not attuned to your child, they first get frustrated. They're like, no, you know, it's a natural response, but we not allowed to have that response because we're gonna lose care. So I'm sure that happened to me when I got frustrated, I lost the care that I did have. And so I learned very early on to suppress my anger and turn it inward. And that's what guilt is. It's like, oh no, 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 I'm not gonna get angry, frustrated here. I'm gonna make myself wrong. And same goes for shame, or I'm gonna cut my own want and need, and I'm gonna make it wrong so I can keep the connection with the caregiver, so I can keep the connection with the client, but the client is just, you know, projection of uh, something, connection that I need. So that's why, and therapists struggle with this. That's another point I wanted to make, is that when I work on with the therapist on this, there's always a process on anger. We start with just naming that anger is not bad. So a lot of us are scared of anger. So everybody has their own, and I'm curious to hear what your relationship with anger is like. I know that I myself was a Buddhist for a long time, and I used to tell people that I'm a Buddhist, I don't get angry. Because anger is like, it didn't feel like that's who I am. I'm a compassionate, loving being, I can't, like, anger just doesn't fit with my sort of identity. And that's exactly the problem that therapists have, is that anger is like, so in our worldview, anger is not allowed, it's not bad, but we do huge disservice when we're not owning our anger, because we can't sit with the client's anger, and then we can't be catalysis for like healing anger in this world. And unhealed anger is exactly what leads to violence, because anger is in itself, it's not bad. Like, anger is life force. Again, going back to burnout, suppressed anger leads to, if you don't have processed anger, that's a lot of blocked energy in your body. That's going to lead to burnout. That's going to lead to depression. That's going to lead to a lot of stagnation in the body. And so, again, we start where we are at. Usually when we start with therapists, we're starting, okay, cognitively, let's agree that anger is not bad. It's what we do with anger is then what's the problem is, because abuse doesn't happen because of anger. Abuse happens because we misuse that energy. So Amanda, if you want to work with guilt, then you would need to work with anger. And there's the Lowen, I can share you guys the book. It's a great book on that Lowen had. Alexander, I think his name. I'm like looking it up right now, but he was more working through the body. So the ways he recommended to, he shares the story where he works with clients she had a lot of guilt, like lots of guilt, and he gave her an exercise, and of course it's in therapy and it's guided. You don't, so it's a powerful emotion to work with. But he gave her the exercise of just waking up every morning and like kicking the bed, like throwing a tantrum. Like I'm angry that I'm taught to be guilty about my needs. Like what the hell? Like I'm medicate with this. And for 5 minutes or like whatever, how many kicks she did. And he said that led to her resolving the guilt, so a huge reduction in guilt. And I experienced the same. So when I did my own anger work, I noticed, oh, my inner critic is not as loud. My shame is not, like, I get to like be myself more, and I'm not so suppressed. So this inner suppression, the internalized voice about like us not having our needs, that's suppressed anger. So I'm really selling you guys and doing your own anger work. And every therapist I worked with had some degree of suppressed anger, and I get that, I do, and it's including me, right? I can't tell you how much suppressed anger I had before I started doing this work, and I'm probably still, doing it. And that's maybe what I'm inviting therapists to do, because a lot of times we intellectually understand things, but then we still need to do, like, to get it in the body, like energetically process it for it to really change. And this is, I think it's a cool little hack about guilt and shame, to do some anger work, some anger release. How do you guys, is anybody here loving their anger? Like, yay, amazing energy. And just talking about anger, by the way, like I feel more alive. I mean, that was, yeah. Any thoughts on that? Comments, questions, concerns? I'm not, not inviting any. There's like, probably my next class is going to be on anger, because there's like whole teaching I have about how to do it safely, how to not hurt others with it. I I love working with anger. It's one of my favorite things. One of my clients, she called me an anger guru. I was laughing because I was like, I don't know. I think I still have work to do there, but I'm working on it. Okay, so Amanda, how's it landing for you? You've been talking to me, so I'm always checking with you. Does it make sense with the anger, what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have to think about that. I'm
Okay.
sure it's probably related, but I'm not exactly sure. But that
Okay.
makes sense.
What's your relationship with anger like?
I don't think that I have suppressed anger. I don't think so. But then it could be,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
yeah, anger is not something. It's a complicated emotion.
Yeah, it is a complicated emotion. Yeah. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear if you guys take it as as a reflection. Just yeah, energetically, that's how it seems to work. Like guilt, shame, inner critic is fueled by suppressed anger, but I'm curious to hear what you find in your own exploration because that's just a theory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like some reflections after this. Uh yeah. And they'll be so, and just imagine that just meant that just going back to possibility, like what would it feel like to really follow your wants and needs and not feel guilty? Just if you just imagine not even going there, right? Just like really, because I think it's a that's what we're born with. That's a natural state for us to be following what we want. But
Mhm.
somewhere in our development that gets stunted.
Yeah.
If you look at kids, and I watch my kids all the time, like they are very like selfish. What we would, and they're not. That's appropriate for their development, but they know what they want. They're going for it. They like, yeah, it's a natural thing. So how do we feel shame about what we want and having needs? How did that happen? It's
Because I
something.
think like when you were just saying, it's okay for us in the exercise to be in touch with your needs. That's kind
Yeah.
of a nice permission to have, but it's not that
Yes.
easy. And I don't
Yes.
think
And why is it not that easy? Because we
because we
were.
haven't received it, that kind of permission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we were taught the opposite. And that's the work that we need to do as therapists to to heal that wound, to
Mm-hmm.
go back and feel that pain. And there's so much pain in that denying of our needs, so much pain. Like, can you imagine being like little baby and not and have any need and receiving something else instead and learning that it's not okay. It's painful. It's extremely painful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why what I was saying about like burnout prevention methods, sure, like we know to take care of ourselves, like whatever, self-care, blah, blah, blah. But we're not doing it because it's not, it's a knowing doing gap, right? It's a knowing what we need to do, but it's not, it's just intellectual, it's here, it's not going deep in the body and doing this work to process the grief, to process the anger, to process the fear, to really do the emotional piece of it, emotional, energetic, somatic piece of it, to then really be free. So if burnout is still happening, for me, burnout is like a beautiful warning signal that, okay, there's work for me to be done here. If I'm heading to burnout, I'm like, oh, wait a second. I'm losing my energy. That means I'm not, there's something operating here. Mendel, you're going to say something?
Oh no, 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 I totally agree with you. Also, when you have children and I mean, when you go for parenting, you feel this energy. It's never enough, right? You learn to live with that. It's like
Yeah,
you learn to keep on giving, right? And it's never enough. And that's
it's
that's a
not enough.
habit.
Yes. But it's never enough because we don't have it. We not nurturing, ourselves. We're giving from empty cup. That's why it feels like is just not enough because we haven't received it. We're not nurtured ourselves. And that's another thing that so just a couple pointers for just specifically to therapists, right? Because I feel like we are a very unique crowd because we know all this like intellectually, we can tell, right? Like we can see it in other people so well, and yet when it comes to us, to ourselves, first there's like self-reliance trap that therapists often fall into, where, well, I know this intellectually, so I should be able to figure it out, and I know what to do, so I should be able to do it, and now we don't do it. And it's because it's kind of like dentists, right, don't fix their own teeth, or surgeons don't operate on themselves, and yet we feel like we should be able to. And it's again that same savior caretaker dynamic, where we feel like it's okay for everybody else to be taken care of, but for us it's not okay. Like we should be able somehow figure it out on our own, because we're therapists, we like help others, so we don't need help. I'm cool. I had this mask for like a long time, like, oh, everybody else needs help, I don't need, you know and that feels good on some level. It's also that identity. So I personally think that every therapist should work through their savior dynamics. You guys all know about savior, right? And the triangle: victim, bully, savior. And so therapists are often in savior dynamics. And the most confusing thing is that, like, it feels good to be there for others, right? It feels good, like it feels on some levels actually feels good for me to abandon myself. Like it's deep coding. We were, a lot of us, I received love for doing this. And so it's coded deeply that it's rewarded. It's good. I feel good. I feel good about myself when I do that. And yet the price is depletion and burnout a lot of times. So it's a trick. And that's why I really want to bring awareness into this, and looking into learning the triangle. Where are you on the triangle, the drama triangle, the fear triangle, and learning about the savior and how it feels. And the savior is actually the one who feels a lot of guilt and obligation to help. So I know when I'm not free to help, but I feel like I have to help, I'm a savior. I hope everybody knows what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I need to talk more about the triangle. But I just love using that drama and fear triangle as an illustration of this. And the savior is the one that self-abandons. And what if we take a moment right now and feel the pain of self-abandonment? I feel like that's really the key in really healing. The root cause of burnout is acknowledging and sitting with the pain of self-abandonment. And you can just imagine something recently, and things that would come up. Because we do it so often, it's so deeply, unconscious, meaning automatic. Just think of an example where you self-abandon recently. I know that I do this a lot at home after work, well, with like my kids, when I feel like I have to take care of them instead of giving myself some time to nourish myself after work. I have to be on for my kids all the time. So a lot of times I'm abandoning my own needs there. And it hurts. And acknowledging that pain is what's gonna help us pay attention to it. So yeah, let me see if I can feel. Just feeling it again. Sometimes we're not in touch with it, and that's a good too. I feel it in my belly. Kind of like this, like, oh, punching the belly. So let's see. We have 15 minutes left. Let's do some takeaways and maybe questions. So my main message is that the burnout that therapists experience usually have deep roots in our conditioning, in learning, in doing caretaking versus care, in learning how to abandon ourselves and our needs, in feeling guilty about having needs and wants, in suppressing them, not following them, not allowing ourselves to have them, and only serve, serve others, only give, give, give. And that is the source of our fulfillment and identity and feeling good about ourselves. And the identity shift is here is coming out of that giver, which is a beautiful, and right, again, it's part of our essence is to care and give, but there's a difference between over giving and giving at our own expense, or giving from this full abundant place that I invited you to, when you feel yourself first energetically, and there's abundance of energy. And when there's a no, you honor that no, and there's a clear boundary. The boundaries, I didn't go so much into boundaries, it wasn't like this, but boundaries is also, the therapists struggle with that, with boundaries. And boundaries is also an act of self-care and self-love and self-nourishment, because that's how we care about our own energy, right? So if somebody's maybe unconsciously just taking more and more from us, and we're not able to stop and say no and say, okay, that's, for me, that's enough, then we tend to, again, overgive, overextend, caretake others, and end up in depletion. So a lot of times, healing from burnout is really going back and doing the work on grieving and not receiving care, working with anger about that. And that, when we process, and we know how it works, right? When we process that emotionally and cognitively and energetically, then we get to be free from that pattern, where, because it's actually natural for us to be giving to ourselves first. It's natural for us to honor our boundaries. But when there's a wound there, there's something happens, then we lose that natural ability, and we fulfill a self, and we do the self-destructive pattern. Okay, well, I'm really would love to hear from you guys. Do you have questions? How's this landing? How is this? Does it make sense? I'm so tired of hearing myself talk. Yeah, Leon, you can say, yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was great to hear. We recently worked with you, and I kind of reminding everything. I had this question. Well, I'm not a therapist. Although
You're a
I
healer,
started,
though.
I started. I see. Yeah, I
Yeah.
started counseling, and I studied from.
You work with people. It's the same
Yes,
thing.
yes, and I
Yeah.
studied counseling, so in
Yeah.
grad school. So,
Right.
but here's this something I did not quite understand how you feel that or perceive when someone takes your energy like subconsciously.
Mhm.
So
Well, let
that's
me give
not
you an
quite.
example. Okay, let me.
Yeah, can you give me
Yeah,
example
I'll
of
give you an
what
example.
you
Have you
feel?
ever had a client who doesn't watch the clock and say you have an hour with them and they just keep talking over an hour?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. So that's what I mean. Like, you know, those they're not doing it because they like want to take, but they're not aware of like boundaries. Like, say a session, like we have an agreement, it's an hour, and so they just keep saying and they like keep talking, and at some point we need to stop them and say, okay, our time is up. Let's right.
Okay, so you meant it not only energy. Like I thought, do you refer it to energetically feeling depleted after session or
Yeah.
just in the moment too?
It can be
So
in the
that's
moment. So I know when I overgive, so I used to do that. Like I used to stay, okay, like with the process, let me stay. And I stay past what's comfortable for me.
okay.
I
See.
know that I'm gonna feel like, oh yeah, I lost
Oh,
energy
now
there.
I see. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I have such clients, and I learned.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I,
we all have it.
I-
And it's not because they're bad people, it's
yeah,
just what happens, right? And I have friends like that.
sure.
And it's
Okay, now
just,
it's clear. Thank you.
yeah.
For
So
example.
it's how you feel after interaction, right? In like after a session, after being with them, and you can, you know, like some, yeah, there's this like, I feel it like energetically, and I know some clients will energetically try to, you know, kind of draw me in more, and it's
Mhm.
again like for me, the energetic tune-up is to stay with myself and feel my boundaries
Yeah.
around me, which are like boundaries, and when it's enough, it's enough. I'll say, okay, well, we're done for today. I'll see you.
Okay, thank you for this example.
Yeah. So any videos? What are you taking away? You know, work with anger after this. And by the way, if you wanna connect with me one-on-one and you wanna tell me how this was, what resonated, what didn't resonate, what was confusing, what you don't agree with, I'm
Did you
happy.
mention the book you reading? You were reading
Yeah,
about anger because I didn't catch it. Wanted to
yeah.
put this in my notes.
And I'm like, now I'm like, oh yeah, it is Alexander Lowen. I'll put it, how about I'll send it to, I don't have a, I think it's Enjoy, but I want to double check. His name is Alexander Lowen. Put it in the chat. You can, I think it's the one Enjoy, I mean, double check with the specific, like when he made the connection between guilt and anger. It might be Enjoy. So he does, yeah, he talks about how this energy of the body kind of affects, and you know, I believe in that, in the energetic and emotional work. See anybody else? Yeah,
Which
see,
book? Do you know the name of the book by any chance?
there's a, I want to say it's the one on joy. I'm just gonna put it, I'm pretty sure. And I'm gonna, after this, gonna double check and I'll send everybody the recording and I'm gonna include the book. I'm just gonna put, I think he talks about it too. It's either on joy or he has one on pleasure. Great books, by the way. He kind of goes into this whole wounding, how I talked about, like if you're not attuned, there's this anger and hate towards the parent, and then we suppress it, and then becomes guilt. And so in therapy, in our own process, we sort of work ourselves back, right? Like we start with guilt and allow ourselves to feel the anger and hate towards the parent, and then feeling through it will free the energy in the body. Yeah, it's a great, and he goes into exercises in this book. I love it. So yeah, what else? I mean, I have 5 minutes left. Questions. I mean, I was also like just wondering, like, so fascinating to me that as therapists we know this, but sometimes I feel like the more we know, the more it like keeps us stuck in a way, you know, how and there's also expectation that we should know. And I personally felt a lot of like shame over realizing, oh, I'm actually like still struggling with this. Like when I heard burnout last year, I was like, oh, I had so much shame about just admitting to myself that I'm still working through this pattern because I am a therapist, blah, blah, blah. I've been doing this work for 15 years, blah, 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 blah. And so that, in a way, it's even harder to do it when you know, so advanced. Because the more advanced we are, the more advanced our defenses get, and the more elaborate cages we build around ourselves. But that's something I'm fascinated about, how, you know, how we can still trick ourselves and how our denial and sort of protection system gets more advanced. But the more we do it. Oh, definitely left. Okay, cool. So let's just close with just coming back to this energy of care, like we care for ourselves. What would it look like in your life to really prioritize yourself? Feeling your wants without guilt or shame. Really embrace them and seeing your wants as safe. Something really sacred, like life itself is expressing itself to your wants. Like, wow, they're not just they are wrong or bad, they actually the opposite of it, like sacred and wonderful and tender and beautiful. And sometimes that's what we need. We don't need to think about how we're going to really fulfill the wants, but what if we just allow ourselves to stay in the energy of our wants? I'm gonna send the recording, and I'm gonna send the link to you or go to, like, you want to talk to me about this. I'm happy to. Still want to hear from you. Okay. Any final, just maybe one something takeaways you said? Was it something you already knew, or what are you basically taking away from this? And I can say, like, for myself, I'm taking away this energy of really putting myself first for the rest of the weekend, and let's see what happens. Oh, okay, you're welcome. Okay, and I'll just send out an email after this to all right. Thank you for coming. I am really appreciating that you came and witnessing this and something that wanted to be expressed and created. And I trust that it's going to serve you. All right. I'll see you guys.
Thank you.